What's up, guys? UFC Fight Night, Dariush versus Tsarukyan was absolutely fantastic. So much so that Dana White gave out $500,000 worth of bonuses. Yes, 8 performance bonuses, and then, of course, a Fight of the Night bonuses. So that's pretty impressive, and it just goes to show how great this card was. And I personally enjoyed it. Let me know what you think below, and be sure to subscribe. I'm the MMA Casual, and I talk everything UFC. So let's go into the main card. That's what I want to touch upon. Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. I didn't know what to expect because when you have a guy who has close to 60 professional fights, you have to think he's going to start declining at some point. But Clay Guida has been the same guy for the last 20 years. Just comes out explosive, the best cardio in the business, unorthodox as you could be, and just everybody loves him. The crowd was going absolutely bananas. Ultimately, Joaquim Silva was able to get the decision victory, but a lot of respect going into Guida's way because, again, he's almost 60 professional fights in, and he's still performing at the same pace as he did as when he was a 20-year-old man. So a lot of fun there. Next up, Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum. This fight had me tossing and turning, let's say, because I did put a bet on this fight. I was ultimately correct. Kelvin Gastelum is the real deal. If you don't like Kelvin Gastelum as a fighter, I don't know what to tell you. He's a true lightweight / welterweight who's been fighting at the middleweight division for years. He gave Israel Adesanya one of the toughest fights he's ever had, and he goes down to 170 to fight Sean Brady, the up-and-comer who just recently got knocked out by Bilal Muhammad. So with that being said, there was a lot of doubt for both guys. Ultimately, I chose the up-and-coming Sean Brady to come in aggressive after the Bilal Muhammad fight, come in technical, come in to win the fight. And then Kelvin Gastelum, I was a little worried about the weight cut because fighting at 185 and then coming down to 170 after so many years, it does affect you. Usually you see guys go up in weight class. Kelvin Gastelum made the right decision and finally came down. With that being said, the fight was fantastic. I thought Sean Brady really showed off his grappling skills and the fact that he's the real Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. And I just got to say that Kelvin Gastelum has a black belt. So the fact that Sean Brady was able to grapple with him the way he did and ultimately put him in bad situations multiple times throughout the fight and then ultimately lock in that Kimura says a lot about Sean Brady. And in the post-fight press conference, Sean Brady said, hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm going to do. He committed to being that boring fighter. A lot of guys were texting me and they were saying, hey, I hated that fight. That wasn't fun. Like, if this is Sean Brady, I'm not excited. And then he goes in and says, this is what I'm going to do. Next up, bantamweight fight, Rob Font versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I had Deiveson Figueiredo. I really thought today was the day of the underdog. Deiveson Figueiredo came in, took a decision victory over a guy who's very experienced and very good in the bantamweight division. Again, like I said in about the previous fight, usually you see guys go up, not down. Deiveson Figueiredo finally went up to bantamweight, and he performed. He looked like the same Deiveson Figueiredo we'd see in the flyweight division. The only thing was that he was dealing with a bigger opponent, and Rob Font didn't deliver like he usually does. He still had the volume, but he was just being dominated, and Figueiredo was just a better fighter, more technical, and ultimately he came out with the decision victory, and I agree with it. And now it gets interesting. Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green, the lightweight matchup. Man, did I hate that. Jalen Turner just fought Dan Hooker. Definitely a war. But Bobby Green is Bobby Green. And I thought Bobby Green was going to come in here and honestly decapitate Jalen Turner. And I'm sorry, Jalen Turner. I really got the wrong call there. It was what you expected from both guys. We only had about a minute and a half of the fight, so we didn't get to see much. Actually, 2.5 minutes, sorry. But Jalen Turner, being very strategic, using his height and reach advantage. Bobby Green trying to get inside, being a little arrogant throughout the fight, hands down, trying to kind of provoke his opponent. It didn't work out. Jalen Turner ultimately slept Bobby Green. And the big thing about this fight is the controversy of when it should have been stopped. And I have to say, I don't disagree with a lot of calls. I don't talk about it often, but if I'd have to say in the last 10 years, the direction we're moving towards, we're definitely protecting fighters more. But I think since we're protecting fighters more, there's a lot of fights that are kind of left up in the air. And we could go into detail of how many fights, the guy's still turning over or starting to block his face or still kind of showing some defense by the time they call it. There's a lot of those calls and I disagree with them. This, on the other hand, was absolute bloody murder. Bobby Green took about 8 shots extra than he should have. I mean, he was wobbled. He got laid out, face down. Jalen Turner's delivering from behind him. Yes, there was some movement, but Bobby Green wasn't there. So I have to say, I'm not going to say it's the worst stoppage I've ever seen, but it's definitely a late stoppage. And poor Bobby Green, he definitely took the shitty end of that stick yesterday. And congrats to Jalen Turner. He continues to prove that he should be contending for the lightweight belt. I mean, he's the real deal, and I hope that he gets a nice little boost into the rankings, because he was the number 12 and Green was the 13. But I hope they give him the due diligence he deserves. The main event: Beneil Dariush, the poor guy, and Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan, hungry, up and comer, doing a great job. Beneil Dariush, if you ask me, had a very small window to become champ. I think Dana White wasn't sold on him. I think the poor guy's had the toughest road to become champ. He's had to fight anyone and everyone. He should have gotten a title shot, but he never did. And I'm here to say that he never will. Beneil Dariush is far past it after losing to Charles Oliveira and now Arman Tsarukyan. I think that the road to a championship now is far out of reach to him. I think he'd have to take out another 4 contenders, and I just don't see it happening. He's taken 2 rough losses back to back to real deal contenders, and the guy's just aging. I mean, I know he looks older than what he is, but he had his small window, and Dana White said, hey, Beneil Dariush, you're not going to be my champion. You're not going to be the champion in the UFC. So if I'm Beneil Dariush, I start looking at other options to make money, maybe a different promotion. But in my opinion, Beneil Dariush's career in the UFC is over after losing to Arman Tsarukyan after a great performance by him, because I'm not giving him enough credit. Great combination there at the end with the knee and then going into the hook. We've seen it before. It was effective, but I'm really focused on Beneil Dariush, and I think that unfortunately, because of the last 2 losses and just the window time frame of those losses, I think it's over for him. I think he had his window. Dana White didn't give it to him, and I think it's over for him. Let me know what you think below. What a fight night. Be sure to like and subscribe.